Well, ahead of our national and provincial elections, and after some of the chaos we've seen in local councils around the country, there's a big focus today on coalition governance and on how coalitions work. The SA Local Government Association and the United Nations Development Programme are holding a joint event to look at this problem and to try and get coalitions to work better. Bheke Stofile is the president of the South African Local Government Association. Mr. Stofile, good afternoon to you, sir, and thank you for your time. I think many people living in areas under a coalition are finding it quite frustrating. How would you describe the governance by coalitions? Are you frustrated?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and to your listeners. And once again, thank you very much for having us. Look, the coalition as a result of democratic processes that the people in a particular area accepted that they need to spread the power and control amongst parties that are participating in the elections. And I think there are different reasons that inform them to arrive to that point, and that is why then they could not vote for a single party to emerge as a party running and ruling that particular municipality. And of course, the recent development on coalition is a worrisome development, certainly, because it does affect the governance, does affect the service delivery, it does affect the stability, because you can imagine managers that are employed in a municipality run by a coalition. There is no certainty of what is going to happen when the power exchange hands. Tomorrow is in Stephen, today is in Stofile, and what will be their attitude with regard to their management. So, of course, these are the worrying developments, and that threatens the performance of a municipal system in rendering service to communities. Yes, indeed. The developments within the coalition, it does pose a serious worrisome developments.
I think that people expect that what happened in local government, what we've seen happen in, say, Nelson Mandela Bay or Joburg or other places, that the same thing will happen in provinces. But isn't the structure a little different? You know, the way, I don't know if it's really going to be exactly the same, because a province is different to a council, isn't it? And national government, again, is different. Do you think structure matters? Because if structure does matter, maybe we could change the structure of councils to try and improve coalition governance.
What is the weakness, Stephen, is that it's not the first time South Africa finding itself seeing hung council. I will make an example about us in the local government community. And what it has been a weakness over time, which we called for since time immemorial, informed by a study that we have conducted using Dula Omar Institute to get to the understanding of what is happening with regard to the coalition. Coalition are informed by interest. Now, management of coalition is what is the problem. Because each party goes to the coalition with an interest to have a particular contribution and a hand into the cookie jar, and have used the power that they happen to be in coalition in a manner that he must seek to benefit his or her party in the outside, in the membership that they have. The weakness over time, which we have been raising to powers being parliament, is that you need to regulate coalition. You need to form certain standards that you will then enter into coalition. You need to recognize that out of 100%, 40, 20, 20, and 30, I mean, whatever the number is, different. When you allocate seats and responsibility, you must also remember that you don't compromise the principle of democracy, the principle of preference. But that preference is saying to you, we can't trust you alone, but we can trust you with a certain responsibility. Now, we then said it is important for you to consider how to regulate that. The second issue is that part of regulation of it, this is our view with regard to local government, is that local government, if you look into 1998 white paper, is stressed on community participation, not just a ticking box, but a real community participation. And what does that mean to us in our view, as we have expressed, is that community participation, it means when there is no majority or there is no outright winner, it's important that you get a view from communities that have voted for you about the project and the program or contract that you are about to enter into it. How will that contract relate to the interest of the voters in delivering the service? And these are the areas that have been lacking over a period of time. What we have been seeing as reasons to collapse of coalition, there are few issues. One of the issues is that what is the role of a party that has minute number of seats in council? What will be that role of that particular party? And we even said government can use Section 12 of the Municipal Structures Act. With Section 12 of Municipal Structures Act, it gives responsibility to provincial government that after election declaration, then you determine the type of a municipality. Is it executive mayoral type? Is it executive collective type? Or is it plenary type municipality? Now, in executive collective type, that's where you fit very well the issue of coalition government. The problem is to develop instruments to implement that so that there's a fair share spread of participating of parties that have contested elections in the world. So to me, as a person, we failed over time to produce regulations, guidance with regard to manage coalition. That is why I was saying to Parliament, if you don't manage it, it's going to fall right into your face. In provincial government and national government, it might be more worse than what we are seeing in local government.
We've seen suggestions that I think both the ANC and the DA agree on significantly, that could, for example, reduce the number of parties represented in a council. If you had a threshold, for example, I think there's 7 parties in Joburg that have just 1 seat. 7 parties that have 1 seat. So 7 councillors from 7 different parties that take up 7 seats. If you had to say you have to get 1% of the vote or 5% of the vote just to get in council, there are other suggestions. I think it was Ibrahim Fakir who suggested that maybe to play a role in government, you would have to have, say, 5%. Would you be in favor of those measures? Do you think that would bring a lot of stability? I mean, there are sort of democratic critiques of that, but do you think that would bring stability? Is that something we should look at to do right now?
It's one of the issues, but to me it's a stopgap measure. It's a stopgap measure because you want to deal with an immediate issue that you believe, in your sense, is a creator of instability. The creator of instability, which is a major issue, that South Africa, it must, and I'm saying I'm not saying it may look at it. It must look at it. Is how many hands that you want in the cookie jar. To what extent are you prepared to broaden that envelope? And at what extent will that broadening of that envelope impact on the services to our people? So the broadest agenda to me is that those that need to enter into a governance process, the first priority, it should be what will be their individual contribution in making sure that services is rendered to communities with speed that it requires. And you find that entering into coalition, we enter into coalition not necessarily we have a common and same objectives. So that is the first thing that we must deal with it. This, to me, is a bigger issue. So the issue of percentage, 2%, 5% is a step-gap measure. I'm telling you now, they can do it tomorrow. You'll have that in the next year. But in the next following year, the instability in that municipality will emerge because we haven't dealt with the core problem that it faces, the coalition challenges in South Africa.
I think that there's a sense that people have given up thinking that coalitions will work. I think people are almost just so worried that they think that it's all just going to get worse after the elections. Do you think we're right to just give up? I mean, do you think there are things that we should be doing right now? And I don't know if anyone's doing anything now to try and sort of mitigate the worst aspects of this. I mean, to implement what you're talking about, really.
In the developed nations, you see, I mean, if you go to Europe, for instance, you see a number of governments run through coalition. But what does that mean? It's the maturity levels. It's the maturity levels of those that participate in that. The question is, are we matured enough to accept that the governance system in South Africa is in the move of change? It comes from a history of a one party, now is going towards a move of multiple parties participating. Do we have an appetite to tolerate one another? Do we have instruments that prevent the eagerness and the interest of finding my finger and my hands in the cookie jar? Do we have an ability to say, our thing to be in government, all of us, is about servicing our people. And therefore, the energies that we have, it should be about how to service the people. So to me, I believe there are bigger debates instead of putting percentage on how to form coalition. Bigger debates is the political maturity of those that participate. Yes, there is a serious concern. As I was making a presentation to Parliament the last few weeks, the Speaker invited us, showing the dangers of coalition, how coalition cripple issues of governance. And if this is allowed to happen in this way, trust level and hopes from communities will be seriously challenged, so as it is today. Now, yes, to me, I believe if we can have a better legislative instruments, majority of individuals participating in governance, reach a stage that I'm not going to say it must be the same stage in Europe because probably we are still very far, but reach a stage to appreciate that we are in government. Government is an institution of the people to drive the developmental agenda of the people, not a developmental agenda of my political party and my interest. If we can arrive at that stage, yes, coalition can work into the future.
Bheke Stofile, thank you. President of the South African Local Government Association, really appreciate the time.